Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for a job. I'm a hard worker. I set high goals. My motto is, if you want to win the lottery, you have to make the money to buy a ticket.
He prowls the city streets at night, selfishly searching to exploit you for his own gain. His name is Lewis, and if you're not talking about me, then you've probably just seen Nightcrawler. Ha!
That's the joke.
And would you look at that, we have our first debut film. The director, Dan Gilroy, was also the screenwriter, and though he's had some success with his screenplays, this is his first shot at directing a film. He even managed to get Jake Gyllenhaal in, not to only act, but to take on the role of a producer. It's not the first time that Gyllenhaal has produced on one of his pictures, but how did he manage to get him? Who knows, maybe it was the fact that Dan Gilroy is the godfather to Jake Gyllenhaal. You know, that might help. But enough about the gossip. How does Dan Gilroy's first film, Nightcrawler, hold up? Let's just say he did enough to keep my interest.
Will this be on television?
Morning news, if it bleeds, it leads.
Jake Gyllenhaal plays Lewis Bloom, who is himself a Nightcrawler. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with this term, a Nightcrawler is a person who finds currently active crime scenes and records footage of them for either financial or personal benefit. In Lewis's instance, this distinction is not so clear. You see, a Nightcrawler's moral code is similar to that of, say, the paparazzi, yet they're even more despicable. Whereas Lou Bloom's moral code is similar to that of a Nightcrawler, except that he is batshit psychotic. To call Jake Gyllenhaal's character creepy is equivalent to calling Charles Manson quirky.
Do you feel like
I think it's become quite evident that Jake Gyllenhaal is trying to shift his career somewhat. He's always been a well-respected actor, but there's no denying that he is a bit of a superstar. The guy will shift tickets. However, his past couple of projects have been gravitating more towards art house and independent cinema, and Nightcrawler seems to be another one to add to his list. And good for him, because this experimental transition seems to be working well. Reinvention doesn't always work.
Oh, Leela, you dirty fucking little bitch. Leela, you dirty little fucking bitch. Oh, Leela, you fucking have no idea.
Gyllenhaal is the crux of this film, and credit to him because he knocks this one out of the park. He spent 3 months studying this character, which included spending time with real LA Nightcrawlers, and it's clear because Lou Bloom absolutely oozes character. From his wide-eyed stare and his apparent inability to blink, to his gaunt stance and sleeked black hair, the portrayal of this character was clearly a completely immersive experience for Gyllenhaal. Quite frankly, it's arguably his best performance to date.
Other animals, but really specifically coyotes. And if you live in Los Angeles, and I happen to have grown up there, they're all over the place looking like they're starving, looking hungry, and looking like they're going to literally eat you when they stare you down. There was something about the nature of this character that was very much like that, and sort of somehow brought together this natural animal world and then this metropolis of Los Angeles.
Ultimately, what Nightcrawler is a character study portraying an outcast trying to succeed in a vibrant city. At times it felt very comparative to Taxi Driver. Don't get me wrong, Taxi Driver is the far superior film, and I'll get to why, but I don't think I'll be the only person to mention the similarities. Possibly the main difference between Travis Bickle and Lou Bloom is that Travis is searching for answers, but Lou knows exactly what he is. In the first scene of the film, we see that yes, this is our main character, but he is a criminal. He's so manipulative and he's fully aware of it. From the get-go, he has no issue with how people perceive him, so he has no boundaries in the way that he interacts with people. Because of his newfound career, he's unafraid to invade people's personal space and privacy, which makes for some genuinely uncomfortable moments. The guy is completely frontless. In a sense, he's the perfect man for the job. He has complete devotion to expanding his business, which most people would call a perversion, yet his high level of intelligence is a dangerous combination with his lack of sanity, because he is absolutely delusional. His complete honesty and lack of any sort of filter make for some absurd, as well as some genuine comedic moments. Lou Bloom is a character that I could honestly watch all day because he's so entertaining. There was also a line towards the end of the film that he says which actually means that on a second viewing, I think I would perceive him differently. It's a small detail which I thought was really clever. I wouldn't necessarily say that Lou Bloom is a complex character, but my word is he interesting.
Think of our newscast as a screaming woman running down the street with her throat cut.
I understand.
So you may be wondering, why have I spent this whole time talking about Jake Gyllenhaal's character and am yet to even mention the main plot? That's because if I was truthful, I'd say that if Gyllenhaal's performance wasn't as good as it was, this would be more of a forgettable film. Gyllenhaal's performance is outstanding, there's nothing that I can take away from that, but I think the film relies too much on it. He is the main attraction. You see, the character was what initially caught my attention, but the plot was what actually grasped my interest. Conceptually, the film is very interesting. The plot summary is that Bloom almost spontaneously decides to become a Nightcrawler after seeing a group of other Nightcrawlers at a crime scene. His determination for the job lands him a role at a news station that is willing to pay for his very shocking and uncompromising footage. However, as time progresses, Bloom seems to evolve in his work from a bystander almost to an instigator. The movie's themes were also topics that I found myself interested in. Okay, sure, media satire is such low-hanging fruit that you practically have to dig it up, but the angle that the film approached it from I felt was honestly unique. It tackles the concept of voyeurism, but from the perspective of a reflection of the public. I felt that Lou Bloom and Rene Rousseau's character represented the general public. Rene Rousseau is what we convince ourselves that we are, that we only need graphic imagery to tell the truth. Whereas due to Lou's honesty, he knows that we just want this content because of our morbid sensibilities. It's the old duality of man shtick. It's a good notion. But a good notion is about all I can say that the film was. On paper, Nightcrawler sounds better than it actually is. I hate to say it, but practically every element of the film didn't really go anywhere. I overall would say that I liked the movie, but I can't say that I wasn't to a degree disappointed. When I take into consideration the things that this film was criticising, I was ultimately underwhelmed in how lacking it was in its dare factor. My main issue with Nightcrawler is that it seems to be missing its edge. I mentioned how there were genuine, uncomfortable confrontations earlier on, but there was never a time in the film where I felt tense. The structure of the film in the first half works very well. I anticipated that the entire movie was going to have a very loose narrative, but around halfway through the main plot emerges and it just felt a bit tacked on. I thought that they should have stuck with focusing less on the situation of the character, as he himself probably couldn't care less about what was going on. It's in the details where a film like Taxi Driver succeeds, whereas Nightcrawler falls. There were no character arcs in the film. By the end, I didn't feel as though anyone had developed at all. They were just the same person that they were at the beginning. And as for the love interest of Lou, I thought that it could have been a very clever subplot for the character. It would be interesting to analyse Lou from a more emotional point of view, but I just wasn't very interested in it. In Taxi Driver, the setting as well as the score of the film emphasised the mood, but in Nightcrawler, neither of those elements seem to have too much of a lasting impact. Now, I hate having to use the sentence I'm about to use, but I'm not sure that there is any other way to say it, so I apologise in advance. But having the conscious choice of setting it in LA made it seem as though the filmmakers, here it comes, wanted the environment to be a character of the film. Ugh. The opening of the film is a montage of LA, but after that its presence didn't seem really all that significant. As for the score, that was an element which I personally thought was altogether bad. It seemed as though they were going for something that would juxtapose with the imagery, but it just came across as silly. I was looking around at the final credits like, I can't be the only one that's hearing this. Ultimately, Nightcrawler is a film which sets itself up for greatness, but slams on the brakes when it should have its foot on the accelerator. I liked where it was heading, but it didn't push itself enough to test us as a viewer and make us see the blurred morality with what was going on. There never came a time where I didn't think that Lou Bloom was a criminal. However, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the character. I don't want to slate the film too much because, like I said earlier, overall I liked it. And as for the director's first film, I'll probably go see his next one because he clearly has some talent. Gyllenhaal's performance, as well as a thought-provoking concept and solid direction, pushed this film just beyond average. Individual scenes I thought played out really well, it's just that as a whole, the film isn't as captivating as it could have been. I'd watch this again just so that I could further look into this great character, but after that I think I'd have gotten everything that Nightcrawler has to offer. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10.